Hello, Roger PC Jack. Today, we're going to be taking a look at something a little bit different compared to usual on the channel. As many of you would have seen, on the 10th of September, PlayStation officially announced the PlayStation 5 Pro. Now, since it's been announced, there's been a lot of discussion online with many people who are very much against the PlayStation 5 Pro for many reasons. Most notably would be because of the price, as it is coming in at $700. But there are some people that are more dubious on the performance improvements it offers over the base PS5. And while there are certainly some benefits which we have seen in PlayStation's technical presentation, today I wanted to go over why I think you should buy a PlayStation 5 Pro, as well as why I think you shouldn't, and to see which camp you belong in. Now, me personally, I was originally contemplating getting the PlayStation 5 Pro, but once I saw that price, I was pretty much taken aback a bit too much. And given some of the issues we have where we don't actually have a great understanding of the performance improvements without getting our hands on it, we are a little limited until the release, and then when we can start seeing some third-party reviews come out. But with a lot of the online discussion sometimes being pretty toxic, and some of it not being as informed as it should be, today I just wanted to have a nice open discussion on the pros and cons of either buying the console or not. So I suppose the best way to start is to take a look at the blog post that PlayStation put up a few days ago. So we can see on here that PlayStation are announcing the PlayStation 5 Pro, and some of the key features they've discussed would obviously be what they refer to as the Big Three. And the Big Three were improvements to the GPU with I believe is up to 45% improvement, and the other one being PSSR, so they call it PlayStation Spectral Super Resolution, and also RT performance, where they want to improve the ray tracing capabilities of the console. So those are the big three that they're discussing. So going into more detail, we have this here from PlayStation. So upgraded GPU. With PS5 Pro, we are upgrading to a GPU that has 67% more compute units than the current PS5 console and 28% faster memory. Overall, this enables up to 45% faster rendering for gameplay, making the experience much smoother. So this is going to be one of the key features that we need to look at when it comes to the PlayStation 5 Pro. And the main benefit that they're trying to get across is that a lot of people, they found, opt for performance instead of fidelity when playing their games, which is an interesting metric given how a lot of performance modes in games do sacrifice resolution quite significantly. But the goal with the PlayStation 5 Pro is for PlayStation to be able to offer similar performance while using the fidelity mode. So instead of having to choose between better looking visuals and a lower frame rate and then having reduced visuals but a higher frame rate, PlayStation are going to try and narrow that down with the PS5 Pro, which is why a more improved GPU would be pretty important in that regard. And they've also said advanced ray tracing. We've added even more powerful ray tracing that provides more dynamic reflection and refraction of light. This allows the rays to be cast at double and at times triple the speeds of the current PS5 console. Now again, similar to the improvements that you're going to see with the GPU, there are a lot of games on the PlayStation 5 that do support RT, but again, with RT, that's going to be very resource heavy, so having the increased GPU power will definitely help in titles that support RT, but also allowing you to get better RT performance while also maintaining your frame rate. But if you can get even better RT options, so maybe they'll bump up some of the reflection and shadow qualities, that would be a pretty big upgrade in itself. And one of the more interesting ones is with PlayStation's introduction of PSSR, which is kind of PlayStation's answer to DLSS from Nvidia or FSR from AMD. So AI-driven upscaling. We're also introducing PlayStation Spectral Super Resolution, an AI-driven upscaling that uses a machine learning-based technology to provide sharp image clarity by adding an extraordinary amount of detail. So if you're not from a PC background, some of this upscaling discussion may be a little bit lost on you. So just to give you the basic premise of it is that basically, with any sort of upscaler, it will take an image that is lower resolution. So let's say, for example, there's a title that runs at 1440p, but using an upscaler, it will actually increase the image quality up to more like 4K. Well, not actually being native 4K, but running it at 1440p internally will allow you to get the performance increase from that resolution, while also improving the image quality ever so slightly with the upscaler. It's a very basic overview, but it's what PlayStation is trying to introduce with PSSR. So in order for the PlayStation 5 Pro to hit these higher frame rates while maintaining visual fidelity, having this upscaler in the background will help even more. Some of the other bits they've discussed on here would be this bit about PS5 Pro Game Boost. So other enhancements include PS5 Pro Game Boost, which can apply to more than 8,500 backward compatible PS4 games playable on PS5 Pro. Now, they haven't really gone into too much detail on how exactly that is going to be implemented. Say for example a game like Red Dead Redemption 2, which is currently not ported natively to the PS5 and is only running on the PS4. Even when you run it on the PS5, you're still running the same version that would run at best on the PlayStation 4 Pro with 4K checkerboard rendering and locked at 30 FPS. Now that's hard coded into the game, so with a feature like Game Boost, I don't know exactly how that's going to benefit certain titles. I don't believe it's necessarily going to make a game like Red Dead Redemption 2 boost up to 60 FPS, because that is more reliant on the game code itself, so that's going to need a little bit more clarification from PlayStation as we get closer to launch, but still would be interested to see how exactly it will impact all the titles as well. So they go on further to mention about some of the titles it's going to be implemented in, which includes games like Alan Wake 2, Assassin's Creed Shadows, Demon's Souls, Dragon's Dogma 2, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, Gran Turismo 7, Hogwarts Legacy, Horizon Forbidden West, Marvel's Spider-Man 2, Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart, The Crew Motorfest, The First Descendant, The Last of Us Part 2 Remastered, and more. And now we get to the really juicy bit that has turned a lot of people in regards to pricing. So the PS5 Pro console will be available this holiday at a manufacturer's suggested retail price of $699 US, or £699 in the UK, £799 euros, and 119,980 yen, I think that is, in China. So it's definitely a very pricey option, and it's probably the most expensive console since the PS3, because that was, I can't remember the exact price, but I know that was very expensive back when it launched. But some other bits on here, it'll also include a 2TB SSD, a DualSense wireless controller, and a copy of Astro's Playroom pre-installed on every PS5 Pro purchase. That's a great game if you haven't played it. I definitely recommend checking that out. And also, this is the one that got me the most, is that the PS5 Pro is a discless console, but you can buy the external disc drive separately. So £700 for a console without a disc drive, and it's supposed to be the Pro version. That is kind of the big bummer with the PlayStation 5 Pro for me, as I do collect a lot of PlayStation physical games. But the main thing is that they are finding a lot more people are opting for digital only. So I understand the decision, but it is definitely a bit of a tricky sell considering the price and not even being able to play your games you bought if you had a PlayStation 5 base console. It is nice that you can add one on separately, but the external drive is, I want to say, about £80 to £100 in the UK, which is making the console nearly £800 when you look at that. But also, the vertical stand is not included, and you have to buy that separately as well. So again, we are looking at a very hefty price hike over the base PS5 with all these options included if you did want to go that route. And then lastly on here, it says the PS5 Pro will launch on November 7th, 2024 and will be available at participating retailers and directly from PlayStation at direct.playstation.com. Pre-orders will begin on September 26, 2024. So as of the time of recording this video, we're only a few days away from pre-orders opening. So if you are interested, you're going to be wanting to get on that as quick as possible, because let's be honest, this is most likely going to sell out, realistically speaking. I could be wrong on that though, but based on a lot of the discussion I've seen online, there are a lot of people that are very much interested. But besides the people who are actually interested in using it for themselves, I imagine the scalpers are going to be having an absolute field day with this console. Now, there's a lot to discuss from what we just read from the blog post on PlayStation, but I am going to be sounding a little overly critical, and that's because some of the things that disappoint me the most are the things that are more important to me, especially stuff like the price and not having a disc drive. The stand, I can kind of take it or leave it, because I use my console horizontally anyway, so it's not a big deal. But considering the actual manufacturing cost of that sort of plastic stand, it just seems a bit excessive not to actually include it. But if you like your stand to be up vertical, that is something you are going to have to consider. But the most egregious thing to me is going to be the disc drive and the pricing on it. Now, before it was announced, I had this sort of vision in my head that it was going to be between $550 to $650. But pushing it to 700 is just a little too rich for my blood. But the point of this video is not for me to decide if I'm going to buy it or not. I'm trying to help you guys decide if it's worth it to you. So we should also take a look at some of the visual improvements that PlayStation showed off in their technical presentation. So starting here, they've started off with an interesting title, The Last of Us Part 2 Remastered, which is a bit of an odd choice considering that it was originally a PS4 game, and we really do need to be seeing more recent titles, but you can see in this side by side, it's running at fidelity on PS5, and they've actually shown an increased frame rate on the PS5 Pro. Now again, this is a little tricky to decipher from a YouTube video because obviously compression is going to be an issue. But you can see in, again, like this for Spider-Man 2, we are seeing improved performance, and then also in Ratchet & Clank. Really, this should have been in the hands of content creators so they could actually show it off a little bit better, because a lot of it isn't going to come through that great in a YouTube video. But again, some of these improvements that PlayStation are showing are going to be a little tricky to see unless you have it right in front of you and look at it yourself. Now, if we want to take a little bit more of a look at what you can kind of expect from PlayStation over the next couple of months, the one thing I did want to actually take a quick look at is the 30th Anniversary Edition consoles that PlayStation announced as well. So on September 19th, PlayStation announced their 30th Anniversary Limited Edition consoles and other products as well, using the classic PS1 color scheme. So you can see we got the PlayStation 5 Pro with the PS1 color scheme, and they've also done it for the original PS5 Slim. You got the DualSense, the PS Portal, and the DualSense Edge. Now, I've seen a bit of an interesting turnaround with a lot of people like myself who were very much taken aback by the actual PS5 Pro, and especially with it being £700. And suddenly we've seen this one, and a lot more people are like, right, this is a bit more of an interesting sell. Despite the fact we don't know pricing for this, but this is definitely going to be a lot more expensive as it's limited edition, and also the PS5 Pro bundle comes with DualSense Edge, DualSense Wireless, just regular controller, with a bunch of accessories as well, so it's definitely going to be a lot more expensive. But here you go, so you get the DualSense itself, the PS5 Pro, a disk drive cover, not a disk drive itself, a carrying case with the DualSense Edge, and then you get a charging station as well. And you also get, I love this USB cable, you get with the original plug from the PS1, you get a badge, paperclip for some reason. I don't quite know why you would include that, and then these cable ties, which could be pretty handy just for keeping the cables neat. I would love if I was gonna go for PS5 Pro, this would be the one I would try to go for, but this is in limited quantities, and I believe it's only 12,300 units they have available. So again, if you want this, you're gonna be wanting to get on it as soon as possible. But what we need to get into really is the main theme of this video is why you should buy it or why you shouldn't, and it's going to be very dependent on what you're looking for. So I think the best thing to do would be to start out positively with people who should buy this product. So personally, in my opinion, the ones I see benefiting most from getting this console would be people who don't actually have a PlayStation 5 already. So if you manage to hold off this long into the PlayStation 5's lifespan, and you are actually considering getting one, it may be a good call to go for that increased price point and get the best version you can. Now, it's worth knowing this is an enthusiast product, and it's definitely targeted at the most hardcore PlayStation fans. But if you are new to the PlayStation 5 ecosystem and you want the best of the best, then this is going to be what you're going to want to go for. But the other category of people we want to look at that could be interested in this would be existing PlayStation 5 owners. Now, the one thing that's worth bearing in mind, it is £700 or dollars, but you can actually offset a lot of that cost by trading in your existing console. So I haven't seen much of this in the UK, but I know for GameStop in the US, they were offering something like $400 for your existing PlayStation 5. So thinking of it that way, you could trade it in and then it's a $300 upgrade, which could be a bit more of a sell. Now, of course, you may actually want to keep your existing PlayStation 5, which obviously that wouldn't be able to apply to in that case. But it is worth noting that is an option and you don't have to have both at the same time. And there are certainly other ways to offset the cost in that way anyway. Now, you will see a lot of people online saying how it's going to be a waste of money to invest in a console like this so close to the PlayStation 6 launching. Well, I say close, it's still going to be a couple of years away, but still, if people want this, they are going to buy it. And while someone like myself who's a bit more technically inclined and will be looking a bit more closely at what the PlayStation 5 Pro offers in regards to its specs and improvements in games, the general buyer isn't really too concerned. So if you don't know much about tech and what goes into these consoles, you're just going to want the best and you'll see Pro and go for it. And there's nothing really wrong with that. people can choose to spend their money how they want. While I'm not going to buy one myself, I'm not really going to look down on someone who's decided to go for it themselves anyway. It's their money, so it is their decision at the end of the day. But now I want to make sure we're keeping things balanced and looking at why I don't think you should buy the PlayStation 5 Pro. Now, one of the biggest reasons I would say for not buying the PS5 Pro is if you're an existing PlayStation 5 user and you're playing games and you're actually content with the performance you're getting in games. Taking a fairly recent example of a game I played on PlayStation 5 Pro, The Last of Us Part 2, again I know it's a PS4 port, but it does certainly have some improvements anyway. But for me, I like to play the game on fidelity mode with an uncapped frame rate, as I have a TV that supports VRR, so I can use different refresh rates and get some increased performance while not losing too much visual fidelity. And running the game at fidelity with uncapped, it's really smooth. There are certainly drops from time to time, but for me it's perfectly playable like that, much more so than having it capped at 30 FPS. So when we see these comparisons between the PlayStation 5 and the Pro, it's very difficult for me to justify investing that much to see a very slight improvement on a game that I'm very much content with. But then on the flip side, you do have games like Alan Wake 2, which on the PS5 Pro is upscaling from 864p, which is not exactly enticing given the performance increases we're expecting from this console. Now again, for a game like Alan Wake 2, I've played that both on fidelity capped at 30 FPS as well as performance on the PlayStation 5 Pro. And the fidelity mode certainly looks very great, but it definitely would need a bit of a boost to performance in that regard. But we are significantly compromising when we're upscaling from that low of a resolution. Now, I could be wrong, I haven't played Alan Wake 2 on a PS5 Pro, so we will have to see a little bit more on that before we can judge it too harshly. But the main thing I think we need to get across why you shouldn't buy it is if you do have a PlayStation 5, it's not going anywhere. It's not going to become worse than it already is. And if you're happy with your PS5, then stick with it. You don't have to go for the upgrade. Looking at PC as an example, I'm currently running a last gen GPU on the RX 6950 XT from AMD. And while it's not current gen, it's not the best of the best, it still runs really well in pretty much all the games I throw at it. Could I get better performance? Yes, I could upgrade to something a bit more current from like Nvidia's 40 series or AMD's 7000 series of GPUs, and I could get an increased performance in games if I wanted to. But I don't have to. This is an incremental upgrade, and you don't have to opt into it. It is completely optional. So if you're on the fence about it, then you don't have to. Sony's not forcing you to buy this, and if you want to send a message that you don't want something like this, especially as it's so expensive, vote with your wallet, and you'll see if PlayStation actually does take notice of that. Overall, while there is a lot of discussions on whether it's worth going for the PS5 Pro or not, I'm still going to be paying close attention as we get to the launch of this, and I am very curious to see how well it does actually perform compared to the PS5 Pro, once we have some more third-party results to look at. Again, while I've said I'm not going to be buying one, I still would love to have actually had a go trying it out and seeing exactly how much better it is than my original PS5. But we'll have to monitor things over the next few months to see how exactly things fare out for the PS5 Pro, and maybe the public perception will start to change over time as we get used to it more and more. But let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. Are you going to be buying the PS5 Pro, or do you already have a PS5 and you're going to be sticking with that? Or are you just completely against the PS5 Pro altogether? Feel free to let me know, as I'd love to hear what you have to say. If you enjoyed this video, then please feel free to like and subscribe for more videos on the way soon. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.